At this point, you just have to roll your eyes. Brandon Aiyuk strikes again. Allegedly, I'm using his choice of words from a previous video, allegedly in Washington, D.C. I don't know if the outfit choice is very smart because I think it's 94 degrees with like 90 degrees, 90% humidity in Washington, D.C. today. Maybe he's in Atlanta because I know that's where Aiyuk spends a lot of his time. Maybe he actually is in Washington, D.C. We know that he wants to play for the Commanders. We don't know if the Commanders want him to play for them. Aiyuk has posted. I think that the more relevant 49ers news is that Nick Bosa has also posted. This is from the Nick Bosa Instagram post, not accompanied with many words. We know that Nick Bosa, known by John Lynch for his efficiency of words, but accompanied by a lot of business, a couple serious photos, and then this was kind of funny. Nick Bosa posted his year 8 photo, entering year 8 here in 2026. The fact that Bosa has posted this tells me that he's back in the headspace necessary and probably in the physical space necessary to take on training camp and to take on this marathon of a 2026 season, which means that he's back from his torn ACL. It was just about a month ago that we heard from Nick Bosa at the 49ers offseason program. And I think every fan should listen to this because I don't think that a lot of people really process how difficult it is to come back from a serious injury. And the fact that we've got Aiyuk and Bosa posting on the same day, within the context of the fact that both of them tore their ACLs at some point over the course of the past 2 seasons, and both of them have obviously handled the recovery processes very differently. Well, I think that it's very, very worth listening into Nick Bosa's mental approach over the course of the past several months.
Wanting to quit, never play again, and never put your body in that position again. And then slowly you realize that you love this game and you want to get back to it and get back to. And I mean, I've never doubted that I could get back to where I am. It's a good thing I play today and not back when my dad did because I probably wouldn't be playing anymore. But luckily they fix you up pretty good, and I'm feeling really good. So my mind's also better. I think I've obviously had a lot of time to work on that and just kind of enjoy some time off. And all the rest of my body feels pretty darn good. My fingers probably haven't felt this good in 20 years. So yeah, I'm excited.
Nick Bosa's fingers have not gotten crushed in between helmets for quite some time now. So he's going to be fresh entering this 2026 season. It happened in week 3 of 2025, early in that game against the Arizona Cardinals. I thought what he said there at the start, it's painful, right? You tear your ACL, you put your body into a position of very difficult recovery. And the initial response from your mind is, I don't want to put my body in that dangerous of a position again. Football's a bunch of car accidents happening out on the football field. And that obviously is very understandable. And Nick Bosa went through that emotion. But over time, he realized how much he loved the game of football, and he began diligently attacking his rehab to the point that he is scheduled to be back in time for training camp, and he is obviously a foundational pillar of what the 49ers hope to do. The delineation between good 49ers defensive play and a good pass rush and bad 49ers defensive play, and obviously that is tied to a bad pass rush, was at Nick Bosa's injury in week 3 last year. Fred Warner's injury, obviously killer for the 49ers in week 6, but it was actually the Bosa injury that was more negatively impactful when you look at the efficiency splits for the 49ers. And that's why defensive ends, edge rushers, like premium pass rushers, make more than the top linebackers in this league. It is the one antidote position to the quarterback position. If you could put pressure on the quarterback without blitzing, and that's what the edge rusher is able to most effectively do when he is a highly skilled player, that is one way that you could stop some of these high-powered offenses of the modern age. And the 49ers didn't have that with Nick Bosa. Now we're just going to focus to see who they get to help him from the veteran pool. Joey Bosa is somebody that we have talked a lot about, and I'm sure the 49ers have talked a lot about, but the problem is that Joey Bosa doesn't want to sign with anybody right now. Got married not too long ago, enjoying golfing here over the course of the offseason. Maybe he signs with the team much closer to training camp, or maybe he waits until the regular season. I was in New York over the course of the past, 24 hours. I talked about Kayvon Thibodeau entering the final year of his contract with the New York Giants. I think he certainly could be a target as the trade deadline grows closer. So many talk about Max Crosby. That's another one that you would talk about as the trade deadline grows closer. I don't know if the Raiders right now are interested in trading Max Crosby anymore. They were earlier this offseason. They agreed to terms with Baltimore, but that wasn't ratified because of the physical. And the realities for the Raiders, I think, for the time being have changed. They're excited about who they've added this offseason. And then we'll see what happens moving into the regular season for multiple parties, right? You see who actually gets off to a hot start. You don't know exactly how your team is going to perform until the games begin. If the 49ers start off hot, what we've seen it multiple times over the course of the Shanahan-Lynch regime, they're more than happy to add to the team before the trade deadline. And I think if you're talking about a premier addition, one who would be more of a rental for this 2026 season, somebody like a Max Crosby, I think the 49ers would probably want to wait until stuff materializes over the course of the year, because you've got so many different variables that are relative unknowns right now. But I said that the biggest 49ers defensive additions of this 2026 season would actually be players already on their team in previous seasons. They didn't have Fred Warner last year. They didn't have Nick Bosa for the majority of last year. They get those two guys back. They will give them a chance to have a top half defense. Now, whether or not the 49ers can then crack the top 12 and the top 10, well, aside from determining whether or not this is a true Super Bowl contender, that's really going to ultimately fall on the totality of pieces delivering for the 49ers. And that circles back to the new defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris, who is going to be introducing a lot of the schematic variances that we have discussed in previous videos. I know from New York yesterday, we talked about the length of the 49ers front seven. I know I owe you guys a video on the 49ers defensive tackles, who I think are central to so much of this. If the 49ers want to be free-flowing in the back seven, they're going to have to be rigid up front. That's why they traded for Osa Odighizuwa, another big addition for San Francisco over the course of this offseason. And Raheem Morris is going to be the guy who is tasked with tying it all together. Bosa also golfed recently. We got a cool little video of Bosa golfing. Mike noting that Bosa's knee looking good on the golf course. If we can ever get it to play.
Good swing.
Keep up for me. That's the corner. Come on, go a little. All right.
That is so good.
Go in.
Come on now.
Come on, 25.
Yes. Yes.
Good right, good. Yep.
Yeah, Nick looked healthy, and I wasn't sure. Was that Fred Warner stepping in after him? I couldn't tell. It was a little too small on my screen over here. So Nick golfing, and Nick obviously posting now, and the bear has broken his hibernation. Remember the last time that he tore his ACL, 2020, that was in week 2 against the New York Jets. Bosa came back the next year, put up 15 sacks, had a good season in 2021, and then he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. Now, Bosa, this is the final year that he has true guaranteed money on his contract. He's still under contract with the 49ers for several more seasons, but I think only like $800,000 is guaranteed, and that's only because of some restructure work that the 49ers did. There essentially are not guarantees beyond this year from the perspective of Nick Bosa and the scale of contracts that he is used to. So in essence, this is a contract year for Nick Bosa. And the last time that Nick Bosa had a contract year, well, he was Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. Signed the extension heading into 2023 before the 49ers played Pittsburgh. So Nick should be very motivated. Nick should be clear-headed. Nick is now surrounded by new faces on the 49ers defensive line. They may not be done adding there yet. We've talked long about the 49ers' potential interest in a veteran to pair with Nick Bosa. Obviously, they're also expecting Mykel Williams in his second year to come back. He's probably a little bit behind Nick in terms of the ACL recovery because he tore his ACL later. And the defensive tackle position is now stronger than it had been in the past. And that could also help Nick Bosa big time. Kris Kocurek talked about the defensive tackle position actually being one that elevates the entire defensive line. It's not just about what they can do on the interior. It is about elevating the entire defense.
Having a guy like Osa and the inside pass rush that he brings, what can that do for the entire?
When you got a guy inside that can win, and if you get him into one-on-one situations, and a guard or a center has to protect against him one-on-one, you anticipate a guy like Osa winning that matchup. And when he wins those matchups, he's in the quarterback's lap. He's getting the quarterback off the spot. He's got a really long wingspan. He's not the tallest guy in the world, but he's got like an 85-inch wingspan that's around the quarterback, and it just, it sets up things for one, himself, and then two, all the other rushers that that are coming at the quarterback. Like if you got an interior rusher from the inside in the quarterback's lap, and he's got to account for that and get off his spot. And next thing you know, his eyes aren't downfield on receivers. He's looking at the rush. Like that affects a lot.
The Super Bowl my second year and made me really stay in it.
That was Kris Kocurek on the impact of a veteran, high-quality interior rusher drawing some double-team attention, just drawing more blocking attention, how that can help Nick Bosa on the outside. The 49ers have been operating anemically more often than not with the interior pass rush. There's a reason why they went out and they spent a ton of money, $21 million a year on Javon Hargrave in 2023. It's because they didn't get much out of their interior pass rushers in 2022. And that was the year where Nick Bosa really went off as the defensive player of the year. The one biggest weakness of the 2022 49ers was the interior pass rush. They got Hargrave, and I thought that he was a fine pass rusher, but he struggled against the run and obviously did not stay healthy for the 49ers. And then last year, the interior pass rush was downright anemic. The 49ers were at 56 total pressures amongst all their defensive tackles. Osa Odighizuwa with his long wingspan of 84 inches. We talked about length and wingspan. 84 inches, what is that? That's about 7 feet, right? It's about the same wingspan as Jaden Duggar's, but Osa Odighizuwa will bring pass rushing juice to the inside. And the ability to see Bosa working in tandem with a quality interior pass rusher should be a nice boost to Nick's game. All right, back in the studio, back from New York City. Game 5, not until tomorrow in San Antonio. I hope you guys enjoyed the 49ers content from New York yesterday. I think that the World Cup, I think the U.S. plays in the World Cup tonight, right, against Paraguay down there at SoFi Stadium. So we'll talk about football now, and then we'll be back talking about some more ball tomorrow. But I'm happy to be live, happy to answer some of your questions. I'm back with a New York tan. I don't know if I got the tan in New York. We got in the tan swimming outside. It was muggy out there in New York. You don't want to sit in outside it doesn't matter if you're in the shade or if you're in the sun. When it's humid, it's hot everywhere. You guys will notice the video from New York started filming outside, and then I was like, all right, it's time to get into air conditioning. So I went to Grand Central Station. I have, when I film in cities, I have like a conceptual plan in my head. I don't go into this completely blind. I want to feature as many different visuals as possible in a city. And if I only have 24 hours there, and yesterday I only had 3 or 4 hours to make a video for everybody in New York, I had a meeting on the Upper West Side. So I went up there and I was by Babe Ruth's old apartment, right? That Estonia building over there on 72nd Street. So then I charted my way down, and I knew that I had to get to Grand Central Station to take the train out to JFK Airport. So what I did, and it was really strategic, it was like a play call. I took the subway down from 72nd, from Babe Ruth's old apartment, to Madison Square Garden. You get off at 34th from Madison Square Garden. Filmed the next part of the video there. So we filmed part 1 on the Upper West Side, part 2 by Madison Square Garden. And then I strategically walked, and this is hot. It was in the heat. I walked east on 33rd Street because I knew that's where Finnerty's, the San Francisco bar, where the 49ers helmet is. I knew that would be on my way. So I stopped in. I said hello at Finnerty's. I included, that's right in the shadow of the Empire State Building. And then I made my way up to Grand Central Station, which is more on the east side of Manhattan. And that's an awesome place to film. I mean, it's spectacular background. And then I hopped on the train. They now have extended the Long Island Railroad to Grand Central Station. And that's huge because you can get out to JFK Airport. And it took me 38 minutes to get to the terminal, which was unbelievable. I mean, you could take a ride. It could be $200 and over an hour. It cost me $12 and I was there in 38 minutes. Anyway, that's a little bit of a behind the scenes, our 49ers video yesterday in New York. It's 102 degrees in New Jersey right now. Did I get out of town in time? I'm just sitting here inside the air conditioning in Nashville right now. Now, I hope it cools off a little bit for Tight End U. That's the next event I have to be at in person. But 100, are you kidding me? 102 degrees? That would have been too much for me. I would have just been inside the entire time yesterday. Terry says, I doubt the 49ers front office is tracking BA's antics. I'm sure they're tracking them, but I think they don't care, nor should they. Brandon Aiyuk cannot threaten the 49ers in any way. I think San Francisco is in the ultimate position of power here. They have absolutely nothing to lose. They've taken care of themselves because he's on the left squad list. They have made it clear that they've offered every resource to him and he has not taken it. So I think that the 49ers are in the clear there, and they're just not giving up the contractual control because why should they? Brandon Aiyuk signed a contract and they paid him $48.1 million over the course of just a few months. And the exchange in that deal was that Brandon Aiyuk would give them contractual control through 2028. So he doesn't just get to burn that part of the contract and still keep the money. In fact, they may even try to get some of the money back from Brandon Aiyuk. I don't know about the 49ers plans there, but there is a potential path forward for San Francisco in that way because of his antics. It becomes stronger with every subsequent post. And he's on this cadence where every 2 days he posts something absolutely stupid. And, that doesn't hurt the 49ers in a potential grievance. Let's put it that way. Neither does the fact that Brandon Aiyuk hit 104 driving by Levi's Stadium and then posted about it himself on YouTube and now is facing a misdemeanor charge and has a warrant out for his arrest. All of that stuff can help the 49ers ultimately claw some money back. And obviously, I talked about this from New York. If he doesn't show up to training camp, they can fine him $50,000 per day. If he doesn't show up to a preseason game, they could fine him $67,500 per missed game. The entirety of July and August could cost Brandon Aiyuk over $1.2 million in fines. If he's even lucky enough to sign a minimum contract with somebody else, and I'm not sure if he will be because I don't think that the rest of the NFL is smiling on these antics, but if he's lucky enough to sign a minimum deal, that would be worth $1.2 million. The 49ers, if Brandon Aiyuk does not apply for reinstatement from the left squad list and actually get his act together in the way that he needs to get his act together, even if he plays next year, even if he does it after training camp, right, and finally is released, the 49ers could just take all of his money. Like that's where we're at right now in terms of the position of power. It definitely is with the football team here. Do I think that Aaron Donald will join Myles Garrett? I have no idea. I don't know if Aaron Donald is just messing with people or if he's serious about rejoining the league. And then B, if he does, yeah, Aaron's been posting videos, lifting, but he's been out of the game for a couple of years. So I don't know what kind of player he would be. I would assume he'd still be good. Would he still be the best player in football after a couple years off? Probably not. I don't know what to make of all that. The 49ers have to just continue forward with the path that they're on, though. Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald are defensive players who are going to be matched up with the 49ers offense. The 49ers have done a lot this offseason to make their offense stronger. That's all they can do to counter Myles Garrett and potentially Aaron Donald. You have to make whatever was the weakest point of your team last year and the weakest point of your offense specifically last year, you have to make better. So what have the 49ers done? Well, separation was the biggest problem. Wide receiver blocking was also one of the biggest problems. That's why they couldn't run explosively. So you have to find a way to get open, and you have to find a way to run the football explosively. That's going to help you get open. They go out and they sign Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer, who's a great blocker and obviously a great receiver. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Only him and Jerry Rice that have done that in NFL history. They go out and they sign Christian Kirk, another guy who's fast, who can set. I'm not saying Evans is fast. Evans is many things. I don't think that he's a pure burner. Christian Kirk is a veteran burner. They've got a guy that can move. They've got a guy that he's a vet. He's somebody who's going to help elevate the floor of the room. They go out and they draft Dejon Stribling, another addition that is very, very targeted at the 49ers' biggest offensive weaknesses last season. He can block. They think he was the best blocker in the entire 2026 draft class. And obviously he's got 4.3 speed, and he barely dropped the ball in college. He's got great hands. He replaces Jawan Jennings at the very least, and I think that Dejon ultimately could be an X receiver for the 49ers. So they very aggressively attacked the biggest weakness they had. It wasn't the offensive line. Anybody who tells you the biggest weakness the 49ers had was the O-line just doesn't really know football, and they're just acting like a parrot, and they see something and they can't think for themselves. And so then they say the same thing online because they think they sound cool, but they really don't, because anybody who watches tape knows that the 49ers receiver position was the biggest issue offensively. They hammered that home over the course of the offseason. That's going to help Brock Purdy. That should help Christian McCaffrey. Another point of assistance for Christian McCaffrey is Kalen Black. Now they have a second running back who I think they can trust in pass protection and probably even in the receiving game to take a load off of Christian McCaffrey and help this offense be as explosive as possible. So they've invested a ton in the offense over the course of this offseason, including a new contract for Trent Williams. And that's the offense that's going to have to face Myles Garrett. It's a good thing that Trent Williams is back, because I'd rather, if I'm the 49ers, have him blocking Myles Garrett than anyone else in the league, right? Hall of Fame left tackle against Hall of Fame defensive end. And if Aaron Donald comes in, well, Dominic Pooney better step up at right guard. And Donald would line up everywhere. That's what he did back in his initial playing career. So that left guard position better get locked down. And the 49ers are running a competition there. And obviously Jake Brendel at center would have to help out on either of those two sides. The good news for the 49ers is that Brock Purdy is the hardest quarterback to sack in the entire NFL. He had the best pressure to sack ratio in the entire league last year. The guy is an absolute escape artist, and obviously he is a very efficient quarterback as well. He's really good under pressure. And at the end of the day, your biggest weapon against pressure is your quarterback, but he can be assisted by obviously those blocking in front of him, but also by those catching the football, because getting open is a great, great antidote to pressure. Getting open quickly is a great antidote to pressure. Why did the 49ers acquire Brian Robinson last season if he didn't fit Shanahan's system? I think they thought he would have fit the system better. I thought he was a better receiver in Washington than he was in San Francisco. For whatever reason, there wasn't a mesh point there with Brian Robinson and the 49ers offense. The yards per route run was down at the bottom of the league. Now, they didn't spend all that much for Brian Robinson, right? It was a 6th round pick, I think. They badly needed a running back too, because I don't think that the trust was there with Isaac Guerendo. So they said, this guy's on the final year of his contract. We're going to trade for him to spruce things up behind Christian McCaffrey. But they did not invest as much as they did in Kalen Black and Brian Robinson. Kalen Black was a 3rd round pick. there's a higher expectation for Kalon Black to be this all-purpose guy that the 49ers need to spell Christian McCaffrey. I think there was a hope that Brian Robinson would continue being more of a dual threat kind of player, and he caught a lot of screen passes in Washington. But they need more than just a screen pass guy at running back. They need somebody who could actually run routes like a receiver in order to really facilitate what Kyle Shanahan wants to do. And they didn't get that out of Jordan Mason. They didn't get that out of Brian Robinson, and they're going to hope that they get that out of Kalon Black. Mike's sending me some stats. This is the defensive pressure composite ratings last season. As you might imagine, the 49ers do not score very well, which is why getting Nick Bosa back is a big deal for San Francisco. See the very bottom right there? The 49ers are number 30. I can take off the text title. The only two worst pass rushes in 2025, Cincinnati, where Trey Hendrickson was hurt for most of the season, and the New York Jets. At the top, Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns. And then, of course, the Houston Texans, who are the best defense in all of football. You know, last year, the Rams, I'm looking for the Rams. Where are the Rams? Number 7. Yeah, I knew they were somewhere in the top 8. Here's the thing about Myles Garrett. I think he's going to help the Rams jump up into the top 5. I mean, I would hope so for their sake. You trade all that for Myles Garrett if you can't move from 7 to the top 5, and that obviously is not a good trade. The Rams are going to be, I would assume, in the top 3 of the pass rush rankings, but it's not like they were the 49ers last year. It's not like they were number 30. With Jared Verse, who's now gone, who went to Cleveland, the Rams were number 7. So there's only marginal improvement potential for the Rams when it comes to the pass rush. For the 49ers, there's more than marginal improvement potential. They can move from number 30 all the way to the top 12, the top 10. They didn't have Nick Bosa last year. He got hurt in week 3. So that's why this is so important to view within context. Every team has its existing performance standards based on what we saw in 2025, and every team is operating within the backdrop of those to set themselves up better for 2026. All right, I'm digging into the comment section here. I know that we do a live every couple days, and I want to make these as interactive as possible. This is why David has good content. He's actually putting in spreadsheet work. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we tried to do a lot of data-based analysis, which means that we're not just talking to talk. We're actually trying to back stuff up. Would the Niners be interested in getting Tyler Linderbaum? No, he's with the Raiders, isn't he? He just signed a massive contract. You can't really get a guy who just signed for a massive signing bonus, especially after year 1. The 49ers are interested in setting themselves up for the longer term at center, potentially with one of your younger players, a draftee in Carver Willis. Jake Brendel's entering his final season under contract, but obviously the 49ers have limited cap resources to spend. I don't care about the space this season. I care about how it's going to roll over into 2027. And I think it's really clear that they want to develop a center from inside the building in order to find cost efficiency at that very important position. And they haven't been dissatisfied with Jake Brendel. That's another player, you know, I get it. He's polarizing, and I understand that casuals are going to say one thing and they're not going to really see the full picture of what he has to do. But the 49ers do understand that Brendel's going to be 34. I think there's an understanding that he's not the very best center in football. There were knee tendonitis issues, especially in 2024. They didn't extend him. They only restructured his contract. The writing there is on the wall. The 49ers have to improve their long-term prospects at center. And That's why I've done so many reports on Carver Willis and the connection to the University of Washington and the responsibilities of center, because I think that he's somebody that's going to be trained for that position here in 2026. Will Mykel Williams have a good season? Well, it depends on when he gets back, right? How much of the season is he going to miss because of the ACL? Maybe he's back week 1. Maybe he's not. I'll tell you this much. When Mykel was on the field last year, the snaps that he was on the field, the 49ers gave up an explosive run rate of less than 5%. I've already shown you some of the advanced splits. Here's another good one. They allowed 2.4 times more explosive runs when Mykel Williams was off the field versus when he was on it. The explosive run rate for opponents absolutely skyrocketed when Mykel wasn't in there. So I think he already had a good rookie season, because the hope for this guy is that he's going to be very impactful in shutting down opposing run games and setting a good edge. Whatever you can get from him as a pass rusher is a bonus. That has to be developed, and they were working on developing it last year. Obviously, a wrench thrown into it by the torn ACL suffered against the New York Giants over there at MetLife Stadium. But now we see how he develops moving forward. The run defense, if he recovers and rehabs appropriately, and I'm sure with Nick Bosa being the veteran leader in that room, it's going to happen for Mykel Williams. The run defense and setting the edge is already happening at a very high level. And if he can continue to do that for the 49ers, 2 thumbs up. Big success from Mykel Williams. Say Mykel's the next Armstead, and if that's the case, huge win for the 49ers. Eric Armstead was a very, very good football player for San Francisco. You're saying the 49ers organization is trying to make Aiyuk look like the bad guy, but you know better? No, I'm sorry, dude. You don't know better. The 49ers gave Brandon Aiyuk $48 million. Learn a lesson about how the world works. You sign a contract, you get money, you're expected to report to work. If you don't report to work, you are not the good guy in the situation. Case closed. There's nothing else to say here. Brandon Aiyuk didn't follow the requirements of his contract. He's had every chance to come out and say that and prove that he actually is not the bad guy here. And all that he has managed to say is that the 49ers are stupid for having paid him $50 million. He can't put any other logical case together in any of his videos. So I think that that's already been determined beyond a reasonable doubt that the 49ers are not in the wrong in this situation. He literally quit on the team. Yes. And here's another thing. And the 49ers fans should probably be irate about this. And I would think that 49ers coaches and executives, they could have used a receiver last year when everyone got hurt and when they were out of bodies at the end of the season. And Aiyuk tore his ACL in week 7 of 2024. You would think that with diligent rehab, even if there was more damage in the knee, but with diligent rehab, given modern medicine, with a commitment to return and play, he could have been back for the stretch run of 2025. In fact, it was all lining up for that to happen. You heard Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. They expected him on the field to end 2025. Instead, the guy abandoned his team, a team that was fighting tooth and nail every week, a team that managed to somehow win 13 games. Despite all those injuries, he just walked out on them. He contributed to the demise of that season. Months after the organization paid him over $48 million. Like, if anybody else in any other walk of life takes money from an organization of that magnitude, $48 million, and then turns around and abandons that organization, there will be consequences coming. They're not just going to be able to walk away as a free agent. Aiyuk is now facing the consequences of his actions, and he seems really upset about it, but that's the only objective way to parse and analyze what has happened here. This is a good question from Ryan. The 49ers had a very low explosive play percentage. Yes, it was much lower than Mac. I don't have the numbers right now. Mac's offense, Mac Jones, when he was QB, was one of the lowest explosive play rates in the league. It got higher when Purdy was in there. I think the big issue, though, is that the 49ers run rate, the explosive run rate, actually stayed low throughout the entire season. They weren't able to rip off those explosive runs, which is the lifeblood of this offense. Because anytime that you start threatening with explosive runs, what happens is the defense has to start committing extra resources to the run, and that can also open up some explosive passes to happen more naturally. Purdy can deliver explosive pass plays more unnaturally because he can escape the pocket. He's the best quarterback at escaping sacks in the league. I've told you guys about the pressure to sack rate, and he could buy some time to throw. So he can create out of structure. Mac doesn't really create out of structure. To create explosive plays with Mac Jones at quarterback, or to create a higher rate of explosive plays with Brock Purdy at quarterback, you have to run the ball explosively, because that's what's going to set up your pass game explosives. The 49ers had only 29 plays that gained over 25 yards last year. The best in the league was Detroit with 51 plays that gained over 25 yards last year. What did Detroit do really well? They ran the football really well. The two-back system, and obviously a good run-blocking offensive line, good run-blocking wide receivers, good tight ends. The Lions were explosive because they had an explosive run game. I wouldn't even say, their quarterback, very immobile, right? Jared Goff. But it's set up for him because the defense is overcommitting to the run. Meanwhile, the 49ers were tied with Tennessee, Houston, and Carolina with only 29 plays that gained over 25 yards. It looks like the league median belonged to the Chiefs with 37 such plays. Again, the 49ers only 29 such plays. You have to think that if they had 8 more, if they were just at the middle of the pack last season, then it might mean one more win, at least one more win for San Francisco. Mike is sending me very complicated graphics that I'm trying to understand right now, and I don't want to put them up on the screen. This one is comparing Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Mac Jones. I don't want to put it up on the screen until I fully understand it, so we're probably going to have to save this for a future show. So you guys, it's a cool graphic, but I don't want to appear like an idiot and not know how to explain it. So I'm going to have to study it for a little bit longer. So make sure you subscribe, because if you subscribe, then you'll be around for when we go over this really cool Purdy, Garoppolo, Mac Jones graphic. Do I see the 49ers giving Aiyuk the daily fines? Sure, why not? I don't know how to predict this situation because it seems so unprecedented, but I would think that the 49ers do everything procedurally at their disposal to protect their business. They paid a guy $48 million to walk out on them at this point. It's unfortunate, but somebody has to bring this back to reality. And the 49ers aren't doing anything petty. They're not doing anything. They're just operating by the book. And you have to operate by the book because you are in the most cutthroat league in the world. There are sharks everywhere in the NFL. All other 31 teams are doing their best to win, and they're going to make the best decisions possible to win. And you can't just give handouts in the NFL, and you can't just let bad behavior go unpunished in the NFL. You have to set examples in this league. There are consequences for actions that screw over the team. The contract enables you to implement those consequences. So I wouldn't be surprised that the 49ers went the route of fines. I am not a Knicks fan. I was just in New York for the vibes. And, when I'm in a city And you could cheer on the team at a bar. We had a good time. I just decided to fly up there like the morning of the game to check it out. And I thought that it was cool. You know what's neat is Mike Brown, whose son is on the 49ers coaching staff, the head coach of the Knicks, is a big 49ers fan. So we got to include that in the video. Glad you enjoyed the video, though. Joe says, I think BA was aware of the fines, but didn't believe the Niners would take it that far. Well, that's not very smart on his part if that's what he thought. But they will make an example out of him, and the NFL will stand behind it. And the NFL should stand behind it. It's bad for business if you could just torch a contract, especially one that's that valuable. Imagine other players trying this repeatedly and expecting success, expecting to be able to walk away. I agree with you, though, and that it seems to me that Aiyuk thought that his exit would be a lot cleaner if he just created an issue and didn't show up. But he should have read his contract before he signed it, or understood his contract before he signed it if this was the plan. Because these contracts protect teams. They own his rights through 2028. That was what he gave up to see $48.1 million hit his bank account. That was the trade. And to think that he could somehow call that trade off while still taking in the money, I think that's not very smart if that's what Brandon Aiyuk did think. All right, I'm ready to answer some more of you guys' questions. We've talked Bosa. We have talked Aiyuk. Guess who canceled their mandatory veteran minicamp? The Rams. So that should put it to rest for anybody who's still in conspiracy theory mode. I joked on X that the Rams canceled their minicamp despite Brandon Aiyuk. That's just how personal it's gotten. Sean McVay trying to get back at Brandon Aiyuk as well. No, in all seriousness, the 49ers had already canceled their minicamp in the past, including with similar timing as this year, back in 2021. For whatever reason, a lot of the media just decided to ignore the fact that they had behaved similarly in the past. I think the writing had been on the wall for a while that the 49ers were going to cancel this year's minicamp. They do play the Rams in Australia early, which is going to lead to an earlier departure and obviously an earlier game than week one, which increased the likelihood of both teams canceling their minicamp. Yet you still had idiotic comments on social media thinking that this was somehow tied to Brandon Aiyuk, who had plenty of opportunities to apply for reinstatement from the left squad list and show up to the team facility before this week. So I don't know how that would have anything to do with anything. Anyway, all of that shot down by the fact that the Rams, too, who obviously have no contractual ties to Brandon Aiyuk, have decided to cancel this week's veteran mini camp. Yeah, they don't want Aaron Donald to report. The Rams are trying to keep Aaron Donald away from the facility. Now we got to lock the doors, make sure his key card doesn't work. Cancel veteran mini camp. Any validity on Alex Highsmith? Let me just put it this way. These aggregators online, they don't do any actual work themselves. They just try to take reports from everywhere and take people's opinions from everywhere because they can't come up with their own thoughts. And they pass it off as news. The Alex Highsmith thing, I went and read what Jason LaCanfora said. He didn't say that the 49ers are in on Alex Highsmith. He said that the 49ers could be a team interested in trading for Alex Highsmith. And then you get all these aggregator accounts who act like the 49ers have actually checked in on Alex Highsmith. So they have essentially duped people who don't read into this correctly enough. Also, they can make like $32 a week from Twitter or something crazy like that. Won't even buy you a sandwich and a drink in San Francisco. But I hope it was worth it. I hope all the posts getting people all riled up was worth it. Listen, the 49ers are interested in adding another veteran edge rusher. But somebody like Highsmith probably wouldn't even be available until the season starts if the Steelers are going into some kind of sell mode. So I just think that it's important to read and comprehend things, not just correctly, but truthfully and honestly. And when the original source didn't even say that the 49ers had reached out to the Steelers, when the original source was just speculating that the 49ers might be interested in Highsmith, a bunch of other people trying to make a few bucks should not rush and repurpose that into the 49ers are interested in Highsmith, because that's never what was said. So let's just get that clear. Mike says, just end all this stupid drama and sign Jadeveon Clowney. That's been Mike's recommendation throughout all of this. Terry is smart. If the 49ers were in the wrong with Brandon Aiyuk, Aiyuk would have gone to the NFLPA and filed a grievance. He did not even contest the voiding of guarantees. He thought that by not contesting the voiding, this is my speculation, by not contesting the voiding of guarantees, and by not showing up and going to the left squad list, he thought that the 49ers would just cut ties with him. It's not working that way for Brandon Aiyuk. I did. I mentioned Kayvon Thibodeau. I think the 49ers might be interested in trading for Kayvon Thibodeau. If there was a list of players, and this is also one where I'm looking forward to pre-deadline maneuvers in 2026. And I'm looking at guys who, A, are either on the final years of their contracts, or B, have already been in trade talks, like serious ones before, like a Max Crosby from the Raiders. Players who could very plausibly be moved. I just realized that for a trade to happen, both sides have to want to do it. And I'm not so sure the New York Giants at this very moment want to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. They've got a new coach. I think they're excited about this season with John Harbaugh. Now, if they start 1-5 and the 49ers are 5-1, all of a sudden the interest to move a piece like Kayvon Thibodeau in the final year of his contract will be greater from the Giants' end and greater from the 49ers' end. And that's a move the 49ers might be able to make. And I think it's a realistic one when it comes to fit for San Francisco. So I was in New York, and I saw that Kayvon Thibodeau was one of the top performing players at OTAs. Ryan Fowler published his list, and obviously we talked about Jaden Duggar. So then I decided to talk about Kayvon Thibodeau. But I think in all likelihood, this is something that wouldn't happen until the regular season. A high-stakes game of chicken. You advise the 49ers to keep Aiyuk and expect him to fulfill his contractual obligations to them? Yeah, absolutely. Even if he, even if you don't expect him to fulfill the obligations, you might as well act like that if you're the 49ers, because you are contractually protected by the left squad list to fulfill that expectation. Right? The 49ers can sit there and expect Aiyuk to act like an adult. And if he doesn't, there's no cost to them and no potential benefit to another team because he's under contract with them. Now, if Aiyuk actually does start to meet those contractual obligations, if he applies for reinstatement with the NFL from the left squad list and he earns his way back into the team facility, then the 49ers would actually have a decision to make. And I think they've already made that decision, but I can't speak for them. But I don't think that they want Brandon Aiyuk around that building. So maybe then they would release him. But Aiyuk actually has to do the bare minimum to make the 49ers move off of their position. And he hasn't done that. He thinks that he can get them to move off of their position by making them uncomfortable on social media. I don't think the 49ers care at all about what Brandon Aiyuk posts on Instagram, because all it does is make Brandon Aiyuk look bad. Every single time he opens his mouth, he looks worse and the 49ers look better. I mean, you can't dispute that. That so far, that's been the case in every single post, and they're happening every other day. Those of you who have just joined, the latest from Brandon Aiyuk is location tagged in Washington, D.C. Also, those of you who just joined, Nick Bosa posted this. Looks like Nick Bosa is ready to go. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Hope that I answered your questions well. Hit that subscribe button. We got some more big videos coming soon.